Welcome to the webinar, and we are all here to discuss accountability related mechanisms for LPG service delivery. And I think that is of significant importance today, given the large amount of rural investments to further LPG access, and also given the progress under the Ujjwala Yojana to provide LPG connections in rural areas. Within Prayas, my colleagues Ashok, Naren, and I have been trying to look at this issue a little more deeply. And we wrote a report recently called On the Back Burner. The link to this report is there in the chat window in the Zoom application. So do take a look at the report. Naren is a lead author on the report, and the webinar is basically designed to sort of present some of our key insights and observations while looking at some of these mechanisms. So the webinar is designed such that Naren will give a very detailed presentation for about 25 minutes or so, presenting many of the aspects that we looked at in the report. And that will be followed by a question and answer session. So at any point of the webinar, please do ask your questions by typing them in the Q&A box in the Zoom application. Please do not use the chat window. There's a request to please keep the questions to more of a broad nature rather than specific, because that will be more relevant for the diverse participants that we have from various backgrounds. Because of the paucity of time, I will be combining and collating many of the questions and asking them together. So I hope that's all right. With that, I would like to say that most of the questions would be answered by my colleagues Naren and Ashok, who would be on the hot seat during the Q&A session. So with that, I will hand it over to Naren, who will take forward and show you the presentation that we have.
Thank you so much, Anne. Let me begin by sharing my screen. I hope you can see my screen. Okay, so let's begin. This is our report, as Anne has mentioned, can be accessed from the website. Yeah, let me begin by some context setting. After near 100% penetration of LPG in India's households post Ujjwala, the issue of sustained use remains, and the national refill rate, including PMUY, as you can see, is about 6.3 cylinders per year, as opposed to a requirement of 7.5 to 9 refills for a typical Indian household in a year. And the PMUY average has been lower, that is 3.2 cylinders per year. Now, both NSSO 76th round and the recent NFHS 5 survey paint a dismal picture that about half of rural India still relies on solid fuels for their cooking needs. Recently, even the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Petroleum and Natural Gas took note of this and has urged the ministry to start focusing on sustained use rather than limiting themselves to connections. So this graph is very telling. On one hand, you have the share of rural distributors increasing and in fact overtaking the urban share of distributors, while the total distributor to connections density is reducing, showing maybe indicating that the pace with which rural distributorship is increasing is perhaps still not enough to serve the increased connections and consumers. Before we get into the report, the details of the report, I want to discuss a bit on the motivation for focusing on aspects of institutional arrangements like accountability. So the question is, why even get into institutional arrangements? So when Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana was launched, as is the case with many or any large-scale social scheme, there were many issues that needed to be ironed out at the implementation level. And that included distributor expansion, beneficiary selection, awareness campaigns, affordability, so on and so forth. And no doubt those improvements have been happening, and focusing on these aspects is an ongoing process. And even we have given many of our suggestions in this regard. However, over 5 years into the scheme, we feel that we need increased attention on some institutional arrangements that make the core of Ujjwala possible. And given the continued importance of Ujjwala, as we have seen through the pandemic relief package also, some of these aspects become important to focus on today. And some of these aspects are accountability instruments, systemic planning and monitoring, uh, achieving quality of supply and service, grievance redressal, public data sharing, and so on. So anybody interested in the long-term success of this scheme will find that these are some of the natural barriers that have to be overcome and focused on. And finally, focusing on these will ensure improved quality of supply and service, increased reliability, and finally translating into sustainable use. Therefore, I would like to say that our report sits in this space of long-term governance reforms and institutional arrangements in order to realize the policy goals of Ujjwala. So out of these institutional arrangements, systems of accountability has a crucial role to play in ensuring quality of supply and service. The figure on the left is a rather simplified map of these linkages. If we look at the solid boxes as functions, the consumer's only function, so to speak, is to adopt and use LPG, right? And OMCs and distributors work towards achieving that. And the dotted boxes are activities between these actors, and these actions lead to ensuring quality of supply and service. Therefore, accountability, viability, grievance redressal, all of these are some of the mechanism and actions. While consumer grievance redressal is definitely necessary, it is very important. It is certainly not sufficient, as they may not always help trace and resolve systemic issues, which is crucial to providing better quality of supply. So what should be our focus? Definitely affordability of LPG, behavior change are important factors, but we don't need to wait for these things to change. In parallel, it is definitely possible to immediately focus on quality of supply and service. And in this context, even rural distributor viability becomes important if quality of supplies and service has to be achieved, because if the model itself is unviable, then QoS is a tall order. Now, all of this we feel can be tied together with strong accountability mechanisms, with quality of supply and the consumer at the center, and that is important. So now looking at the near future, what we will see in the near future, currently there are about 68 lakh piped natural gas or PNG connections, which is about all of it is in the urban India, and which is about 3.5% of active non-Ujjwala LPG connections today. More and more urban domestic consumers may move to PNG and electric cooking, given the policy push. And by 2027, the city gas distribution licensees have committed 4.23 crore domestic PNG connections, and that is about 30% of estimated urban households at that time in 2027, estimated households. Now, what will happen is OMCs will be left with rural consumers in the underserved areas for domestic LPG business. And this makes it essential for us to examine some of these issues for sustained adoption, and viability, accountability in rural areas, especially for this segment, becomes very important to look at. Yeah. So, a quick word about the methodology of the study itself. To understand some of these existing mechanisms and what are the dominant mechanisms of accountability, we have looked at the publicly available documents, portals, reports, case laws, and there's a list of it here. But because we found that even the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas refer to distributorship agreement and the LPG marketing discipline guidelines as the dominant mechanisms to hold distributors accountable, we have focused on these documents. We have done a literature survey of field-based studies out there to understand what are the prevailing quality of supply and service issues. And we have also conducted multiple rounds of discussion with distributor groups, consumer representatives, and sector experts, which have helped us confirm some of our findings. Yeah, getting into the specifics of the analysis, the document we have thoroughly analyzed is a publicly available version of distributorship agreement. It is a bipartite, legally binding contract between the OMC and the distributor, and is currently set at 10 years with the possibility of extension of 5 years. And the agreement lays out various terms of operations for distributors, termination, risks, indemnity, arbitration, and so on. Looking at some of the issues with distributor agreement, what stands out is that many terms appear to be one-sided, with complete indemnity to OMCs, and all liability seem to be on the distributor. Norms like minimum sales, minimum uptake, etc., are not do not appear to be have set consultatively and appear to be set uniformly across the country, thereby not taking local realities into context. There is no publicly available data to also infer otherwise. So, and the agreement appoints an OMC officer as an arbitrator and explicitly mentions the distributor cannot object to the same. Some provisions of the agreement appear to be in conflict with the marketing discipline guidelines, which I will go over in the next slide. For example, the agreement gives the distributor 4 days to remedy a breach of the terms, and the LPG MDG provides for at least 15 days for the distributor to reply and not necessarily remedy. Now, this is just one example. And as we know that distributor agreement is a legal contract, it can cause confusion, ambiguity, and potential discretionary action by OMC. Now, a fair and balanced agreement is not only necessary if you look at the natural justice point of view, but also essential to improve quality of supply and service for the consumer. And while the distributorship agreement is and probably will continue to be what is known as dotted line agreement, where the prospective distributor either accepts the term by signing on the dotted line or foregoes the distributorship. But since PSU OMCs are part of the state executive, there is an onus on them to make it more fair and balanced. Another important accountability instrument, as I mentioned, is the marketing discipline guidelines. It is an elaborate and at times complex set of guidelines for distributors on irregularities identified in the OMC inspections. And it gives details on penalties and appeal processes. The complex diagram here is a snapshot of these mechanisms, also available in our report. And in fact, the complexity of it is just one issue with LPG MDG. It seems to treat all categories of the distributors the same way, at least with respect to urban and rural. Some frivolous and some serious irregularities are clubbed into minor category, and minor category does not have any appeal process. So in effect, if a minor offense is deemed to have occurred on 2 consecutive inspections, then penalty can be, in our estimate, more than 30% of the monthly earnings of distributors without recourse to appeal. Other irregularities, that is other category of irregularities, do have appeal process, but it is set at very high security deposit, making it inaccessible for perhaps genuinely distressed distributors. And again, there is no publicly available data on how many distributors are penalized, what categories, what are the grounds for appeal, and so on. Therefore, in effect, high penalties and opportunity for and no recourse for appeal can provide opportunity for distortion at the local level, and ultimately the consumer suffers because of this. Okay, so therefore, in effect, these mechanisms have the following issues. So even when OMCs form a crucial component in ensuring QoSs, their accountability to distributors and more importantly to consumers are far from ideal. Unlike other sectors like power sector and public accountability laws that many states have enacted, there are no standards of performance regulations in this sector to compensate the consumer for poor quality of supply and service. Now you can see the percentage here that almost near 100% of LPG consumption is PSU sales in the country today, and 93 or 94% of it is domestic use. So given that OMC forms this crucial component, we think that there is some gaps that need to be bridged here. No linkage, there is no linkage of grievance, redressal and accountability mechanisms. Almost all LPG MDG irregularities arise out of OMC inspections rather than consumer complaints. And this can lead to compromises and ultimately not enhance quality of supply and service for the consumers. Distributor viability. Distributor viability and is especially in the rural becomes very important, as distributorship is as it is a capital intensive business, even for the rural distributors, and more so in the rural because the costs of operations are higher and the sales are lower, but the commissions are same as urban, failing like the commissions are set at a common level for urban, rural and other categories of distributors. So if we do not ensure viability of rural segment, some distributors may be forced to adopt dubious methods to stay afloat, which is far from ideal for the sector. Yeah. Now, having seen these issues, let us focus on some of the suggestions for improvement. And we can think of these suggestions as of two categories. One is action ideas and another is systemic changes. Action ideas are what we feel ideas that are possible to implement in the present framework, a few measures that are tried out in other sectors, so the sector has benefit of experience and expertise from other sectors, and immediate implementation is more feasible and possible. Systemic changes, the ideas in systemic changes do take some time because these are policy institutional interventions. These take time because of they need to be done in a deliberative manner with plan and the implementation. It may need additional resource allocation also, and we may need to take legislative or executive routes for these actions. And uh, by and large, these are long-term reform for the sector. Okay, so action ideas, some of the action ideas, let's get started. Uh, we need to improve accountability across the supply chain and including OMC accountability. As I have mentioned, OMC accountability becomes very crucial here. And there needs to be a periodic independent service delivery audit of OMCs specifically for the domestic LPG segment. There may be such independent service delivery audits for other segments of OMC, but we need to have it in the domestic segment, focusing on the service. Now, distributors need to know the kinds of MDG irregularities, appeals, penalties that are getting applied in their own marketing areas for other distributors. And what this will do is this will help the distributors understand the processes. It will help the new distributors understand the processes also, and be better equipped at serving the consumers. Towards this, we feel that we can create a portal to streamline existing distributor accountability processes and making some summary data public. Now, we need to encourage a viability of the distributors. And this is an important point because the unified selection guidelines of LPG distributors talks about viability. And it is based on the premise that the distributor location selection, market restructuring are all done keeping viability in mind. So be that as it may, there can be more measures to ensure this. Some of them are we could provide performance-based incentives and differential commission for rural distributors. We can enable other sources of revenue without violating safety norms or conflict of interest. Some examples could be because increased penetration of mobile and internet technology, you could have distributors having small mobile recharge sort of shops in their own premises. And OMCs and LPG distributor association can come together and consider targeted information sharing and mentoring new rural distributors, because we need to keep in mind that many of these distributors are also special categories. There could be kith and kin of military and paramilitary, deceased personnel, persons with disability. So what this sort of an engagement will do is it will help the new distributors or prospective distributors understand the sector and better understand all the processes that are demanded of them. So one of the ways to ensure grievance redressal systems and accountability mechanisms are coupled is by increasing consumer awareness. So we feel that we can replace the current system of domestic gas consumer card with a concise printed bill like other consumer facing service delivery sectors like electricity. So all of us receive our electricity bill, and there are a lot of useful details in both the sides of it. So we could have some arrangement like that for the domestic LPG sector, and some of these details could be detailed price buildup of the cylinder. And because these prices vary across the districts, we could have this at that marketing area level. Last few digits of your Aadhaar linked bank account, UID, number of subsidized refills avail, and if applicable, so on and so forth. Now, the other side of the bill should have information on safety, standards of performance, norms like targeted delivery time, what are the consumer rights involved here, how to access the grievance redressal mechanisms, printed in permanent ink, and perhaps even local language. Sorry, the last action idea here is that we need to make some performance data publicly available, and a few parameters that can be collected and put out are refill ceiling limit to total sales, ratio of minimum uptake to total sales, PMUY refills and non-PMUY refill rate. And the diagram here is just a schematic of what levels this data can be generated, collated, and released. And we have also suggested some of these data formats for people to have a look at, and this is available in Excel sheets also in the link that Anne had shared. What we can do is we can use the existing MyLPG portals that were designed to be transparent sharing of information like this, and we can leverage some of those features which are standardized across OMCs. Now coming to the systemic changes. Consultatively revised distributor agreement and LPG MDG. And this is including the ones that are in force currently and are due for renewal. This is basically in order to avoid conflicting provisions between the MDG and the distributor agreement, making it consistent, to create more equitable, realistic service parameters, and bring rural quality of supply and service. I mean to say, aim to bring rural quality of supply and service to urban levels in, say, some time like 5 years. And the distributor agreement and LPG MDG should have minimum standards of performance defined, and penalties should be for both the parties, that is OMCs and distributors. And on the right is a schematic of the proposed SOP structure, wherein the consumer is compensated from the distributor, who is in turn compensated by the OMC if the root cause is traced back to OMC. Now, all of this has to be done by amending the agreement and the MDG deliberatively and consultatively. And this draft must be, I mean, the MOPNG should also come up with a model LPG agreement, and this draft can be finalized with extensive consultation with distributor groups, unions, public comments, and so on. Finally, this complex and crucial sector, that is the LPG, domestic LPG sector, needs an independent regulator. And the Petroleum Natural Gas Regulatory Board Act can be amended, or LPG can be made a notified product to accommodate this. Now, the PNGRB already has most of these necessary legal frameworks and powers, including an appellate authority. The regulator must oversee the implementation of the model distributor agreement and resolve any disputes that arise. The regulator must also order OMCs to set up consumer grievance redressal forums, and the regulator should itself appoint ombudsmen for appeals against the CGRF orders. Finally, the OMC should consider taking over the rural distributorships, especially the genuinely distressed ones, because greater adoption of LPG has now come to be seen as a social welfare obligation rather than just a business. MOPNG should suitably support OMCs in their rural distributorships. Now, OMCs can consider opening new rural distributorships on their own, and provide good quality of supply and service. In addition, they can also consider making a one-time option of a buyout of existing genuinely distressed distributors, and some way to ascertain this would be the feasibility limit that is mentioned in the selection guidelines. So with this, I end my part of the presentation. I welcome you to look at the report and also write to us for any comments and suggestions. So over to you, Anne.
Thanks, Naren. So I think this is the Q&A session that we are coming to. Naren's comprehensive presentation probably has set the stage, and we already have a lot of questions that are coming in. I request you to continue to type your questions in the Q&A box. And as I had mentioned earlier, it will be good if they're kept to be a more of a broad nature rather than a specific questions. And I will be combining and collating questions and asking them during this session. So with that, maybe we can go to our first question. And maybe Ashok, maybe you can answer this. The question is, what is the impact of removal of subsidies on LPG uptake, especially in rural areas and on distributor viability? Any comments on the taxation structure for LPG at the central and state level would also be welcome. Thanks.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I probably didn't hear the entire question due to a bit of a technical glitch, but I think you asked, if I understand right, you're asking about the recent news about reduction of subsidies and removal of subsidies on LPG and also taxation structure of LPG, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have also seen this recent news items about removal of LPG subsidies, and it's in a way a very tricky situation because we feel that even subsidized LPG prices are generally unaffordable for rural households the way they were. And if crude prices have been falling in the recent past, in a way that could have been seen as an opportunity to pass on this price reduction benefit to consumers and make it a little more affordable for them. But it looks like the government, given the current economic situation perhaps, or we don't know what their thinking is, but I think they're more worried about their fiscal deficit and would like to reduce their subsidy outgo. And hence, in a way, the falling crude price, the benefit of the falling crude prices have not been passed on to consumers. As a result, unfortunately, we feel that this is definitely not going to have a positive impact on LPG consumption in rural areas. If anything, it could perhaps have a negative impact if subsidized LPG prices go up. So that's really an issue to probably worry about. And coming to the taxation structure of LPG, as far as we understand, LPG is actually now under GST. So in that sense, it is, I do not exactly remember which bracket of GST it falls under, whether it's in the 18% bracket or the 12% bracket or the 5% bracket. But it is uniform across the country, and so there's no really difference, no real differences on taxation structure across different states and so on. Unlike, let's say, for the transport fuels like petrol and diesel. Yeah, thanks, Anne. Over to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Ashok. I think it is in the 5% bracket. We can always check back. Yeah. Naren, maybe you can take the next question. The question is, how strong are unions in the distribution segment of LPG delivery? And are they often consulted by oil marketing companies or the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas before announcing major policy changes?
Thanks, Anne. There are a few LPG distributors associations, both at the national and the subnational level, who engage with the ministry through submissions of grievances, apprising the ministry of the issues and so on. However, our sense is that these organizations are perhaps not widely consulted before major policy changes take place. And some of these associations may also have competing interest when it comes to market shares, because these are different categories of distributors also. So I hope that answers.
Yeah, thanks. The next question, maybe Ashok can take it. The report had mentioned a lot about stringent norms So how do these stringent norms on distributors affect consumers of LPG?
Yeah, actually, that's a very valid doubt to have, because after all, what can be wrong with having norms that are stringent and expecting distributors to adhere to them? We feel that the challenge is not only the fact that they're stringent, but the challenge is the combination of the fact that the norms are not only stringent, but perhaps unrealistically stringent in some cases, along with the lack of transparency regarding actual adherence to these norms, imposition of penalties, and so on, without really closing the circle in terms of with the consumer. So most of the discussions, negotiations, and so on happen between OMCs and distributors. As Naren in his presentation pointed out, it is the OMC inspections of distributors that leads to many of the violations of the marketing discipline guidelines. And that result leads to penalties. So the consumer is not in the picture at all. And this process of the OMC inspections of distributors and what happens there is something that is between them, and there's no independent verification or understanding of what really happens there. And this is what we feel leads to potential for compromises and settlements between distributors and OMCs to manage these norms in a way that kind of they both get away with it without really addressing consumer related issues. And that's why we feel that it's not only the stringent norms, but a combination of stringent norms along with the existing system that has a detrimental impact on consumer quality of service.
Right. Thanks, Ashok. Naren, maybe you can take the next question. Given the number of distributors in each state, would one central regulator like the PNGRB really help? And if so, what would be the envisaged role of that regulator? Would that regulator be only there to set prices and standards, or would it be something more? Moreover, would PNGRB-like organizations have the capacity to ensure implementation of its regulations across the country? Over to you, Naren.
Thanks, Anne. That's a long question. So let me see. So oil and gas, including LPG, is already a central subject. So legally, I think it appears that a central regulator is what would work. However, we do understand that if the regulator is central, it might be inaccessible to many consumers who are spread across the country. So for that regulator to be more accessible, perhaps one can think of regional benches of the regulator, which can listen to consumer issues at the local level. Alternatively, a well-functioning grievance redressal mechanism, and this is even without the regulator, a mechanism can, with the local presence and participation and representation, can make the regulator's job easy. And then the regulator would only have to deal with larger systemic issues. Did I cover everything? That your question?
Sorry, I was on mute.
Yeah.
Ashok, maybe you can take the next question. Naren, I think you covered most of it. So given the emphasis on competition and privatization to address challenges in sectors that are having multiple legacy issues, do we envisage any role for competition in this space, especially given that there are only 3 oil marketing companies which are publicly owned at the moment? Ashok, do you want to take this?
Yeah, thanks, Anne. And once again, I would say that this is a very natural question to arise. As many of you probably know, that similar questions are also being discussed in the power sector in terms of how does one manage electricity distribution, which is also kind of a monopoly business. Can competition help? How can competition be introduced there? So it's a natural question in the context of LPG also. The issues are probably a little more nuanced and tricky. In theory, of course, competition can help. But as we all know, to begin with, for that theory to become practice, one needs a level playing field, which means that the various players in the market need to have similar information, similar kind of access, and so on. There needs to be a low entry barrier, and a consumer eventually needs to have multiple players to which the consumer can approach, and she can actually get the service from whichever service provider is providing the best service. So if these conditions are satisfied, in theory, yes, competition can help. And of course, there should be also easy ways for consumers to switch from one supplier to another. It's not just that they should be available, but if I'm dissatisfied with one, I should be able to move to another easily. But the problem is that in practice, this is unlikely to be true. And this is particularly so because at least our focus is primarily on rural areas, which is where we think that LPG consumption really needs to increase, and QoSS is a major challenge. And for rural areas, it's very unlikely that the market, so to say, is attractive enough for many players to actually want to go there. As we kind of indicated during our presentation, with the current system, it definitely doesn't appear that rural distributorship is a very viable business opportunity. It's at least definitely not all over the country. Maybe in some specific pockets, it might be a viable business, but otherwise, no. So given that, we really don't think that for rural markets, there is really likely to be too much of competition and many people wanting to provide service in that area. And therefore, I don't think in practice, competition can serve as a solution to addressing the quality question. Yeah, over to you, Anne.
Thanks, Ashok. Wow. Okay. Naren, the next question is for you. How do you envisage institutions for grievance redressal in this sector, and how can their independence be ensured?
Okay. Yeah. So even our report mentions some of this. I mean, in addition to common toll-free number and OMC portals and apps to receive complaints, the Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances, this is at the center, also has a portal which receives consumer complaints, not just related to domestic LPG, but almost all the ministries. How it does it is it collects it from the consumers and then forwards it to the MOPNG. But however, I mean, there is no public data to understand how these complaints are taken up, what role does consumer play in closing them, because that is important. The same is the case with OMC's in-house grievance redressal systems too. I'm sorry. So in addition, there are already district consumer redressal forums that take up cases of consumer interests, which go all the way to the National Consumer Redressal Forums. And this is under the Consumer Protection Act 1986 or something. So it is general in nature. And as we have mentioned, even in our report, many states have public accountability laws and appropriate mechanisms to handle these grievances. But in order to ensure maybe independence and grievance redressal system independence, what can also be done in the domestic LPG's case is just like in the power sector, independent consumer grievance redressal forums can be set up, and this needs to have specialized knowledge, bringing in some consumer representatives of civil society at the local level, some ex-OMC officials, and so on. Yeah, that's how I'll answer this. I hope that answers.
Yeah, it does. Thanks. Ashok, the next question is for you. Can you shed a little bit more light on the economic viability of distributors and how the viability differs between rural and urban distributors?
Yeah, I'll take a crack at answering this, but I hope as the audience would understand, it is not that we have very good data or numbers based on which this can be done. This is based on interviews and discussions with distributors and the sense that we have of how the business works. Naturally, these are private businesses, and one doesn't have too much data and information based on which one can make very strong statements. Nonetheless, basically the issue between urban and rural are twofold. One is that as Naren in his presentation mentioned, the commission per cylinder sold to a domestic consumer is fixed, whether it is you are an urban distributor or a rural distributor. So for every cylinder sold, I think the current amount is about 60 rupees per cylinder is what goes to the distributor. And this amount is fixed irrespective of whether I'm in the urban area or in the rural area. So now if you're an urban distributor, then you have two advantages as far as domestic consumers go. And that is that one is that you are likely to have richer and more consumers within your distribution area who will be buying more cylinders per month or per year from you, rather than a rural consumer who, as we already seen, only about 50% of rural households use LPG as their so-called primary cooking fuel, which means that even if a house has an LPG cylinder, they don't use it for all their cooking. They use it occasionally to make tea when guests come, and so on and so forth. So the sale per consumer is much lower in the rural areas as against urban areas. Even the number of consumers is likely to be lower in the rural areas as compared to the urban areas, simply because of the lower population density. And as Naren showed, now we do have quite a few rural distributors. So the number of consumers per distributor is not likely to be very high. The third aspect, of course, is again, because of lower population density, the cost of serving them is higher in the rural areas. You need to go further to actually give cylinders and so on. While in urban areas, one van can actually make a trip every other day and reach out to a lot of consumers. So this is a whole set of issues that are kind of relevant as far as domestic consumers are concerned, where urban distributors have an advantage over rural distributors. The other aspect comes with respect to non-domestic consumers, which are essentially your commercial consumers, such as restaurants and hotels and hospitals and so on and so forth. And naturally, such consumers also are much larger in number in urban areas versus rural areas. And from our understanding, it is essentially these non-commercial, non-residential consumers who are actually one of the big sources of, let's say, profits for distributors. And because for them the price is more negotiable, and the distributor commissions are not fixed, and therefore it's really up to the both the, shall we say, business acumen of the distributor and the kind of business opportunities in the geographic area of the distributor. And as you can imagine, the business opportunities for commercial or non-residential sales are again much higher in urban areas as compared to rural areas, which means that that whole possibility of getting that higher commission per cylinder and being able to make up for perhaps a less realization from domestic consumers by getting it from commercial consumers disappears as far as rural distributors are concerned. So these are two large reasons why rural distribution, LPG distribution, we think is definitely not as good as business, as lucrative a business as urban. But it'll be hard to put numbers as to how many rupees per cylinder does a rural distributor make versus an urban distributor make. I hope that makes some sense. Over to you, Anne. Thanks.
Thanks. So the next question is, maybe Naren can answer this. There have been a lot of highlights on the issues of quality of supply and service between OMCs and distributors. It'd be good if you could highlight some of the issues that the consumers face, which the distributors are also responsible for. In that context, if LPG penetration is picking up only now, awareness of a lot of accountability measures itself would be low in rural areas. So what measures do you have to also address the lack of awareness of existing or proposed provisions? So these are two disparate questions, but I thought you could answer them together. Thanks.
Sure. Thanks, Anne. So the first part of the question is, we have talked about the quality, supply, service issues between distributors and OMCs, but we haven't talked so much about that between distributors and the consumers. So now the way to think about this is, if you are a consumer, the kind of interface that you have on a daily basis is with your distributor. So that would be non-delivery of refill at your address, at your residential address, and delaying the delivery, unreliable issue, or it could be about not conducting mandatory inspections that are supposed to be conducted. or pre-installation inspections. Many times the consumer themselves may not know what are mandatory, what needs to be paid for. And these are service issues, but you can think of underweight cylinders, but the consumer does not know that they have a right to weigh the cylinder every time. So some of these, and when you come, if you want to focus on the Ujjwala scheme, then because the distributors were at the implementation forefront, you could think of delayed release of connections, not lack of knowledge of the loan scheme itself, like how does the whole loan scheme of the uh, uh, cook stove works, and all of this. So you could think of these issues as QoS issues for the consumers and between the consumers and distributors. The next part of the question is about, sorry, can you remind me about the next part of the question?
Yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. The next part of the question is more with respect to if LPG penetration is picking up in rural areas, then how do you ensure that there is awareness for some of the accountability mechanisms in rural areas? So what measures do you have to track the lack of awareness for existing or proposed provisions?
Right. Okay. Thank you. To be honest, we think awareness of accountability mechanisms are low among consumers, even in the urban areas. And one of the ideas that we have proposed, and I had just shown the slides, is like other utilities like electricity, mobile phone, broadband, etc. The LPG bills can provide a lot more information regarding consumer rights, grievance redressals, the existing grievance redressals, existing consumer right, let alone any of those reforms. And this can be done in English and in local language, so that it can be ensured that many people understand it. But other specific information awareness programs can also be thought of, probably through the Ministry of Consumer Affairs. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Naren. Maybe Ashok, you can take the next question. Given the national commitment to clean cooking, what are the steps that the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas can take to ensure OMCs are able to ensure better service delivery for consumers?
Yeah, thanks, Anne. In fact, we have kind of outlined some of our ideas in the report that Naren has presented. But very briefly to reiterate some of them, essentially one of the things we are suggesting is that there should be independent and regularly periodic service quality audits of OMCs. So currently, this is something that I think has been asked for, but it has not really happened. But conducting such independent and periodic quality audits, and of course making those audit reports public, would be one way of moving in this direction of making OMCs more accountable to the kind of service that they're providing. Second thing is the kind of thing that Naren talked about in his presentation in terms of greater transparency, where we are suggesting that there can be a portal where a lot of information regarding, the violations, the penalties imposed, the kind of, let's say, time taken to deliver cylinders on an average, the number of times some cylinders were found to be underweight, and all kinds of information, and how many times did the OMC delay in supplying cylinders to the distributor. So, or how many times distributors found underweight cylinders when they got them from the OMCs. So all these various kinds of parameters can actually, summary information can be published, and that again, periodic updation and provision of such information transparently is another way that one can push the envelope on quality of service. The other idea which we have suggested, we have no idea, we don't know whether it will have any traction at all, is of course setting up an independent regulator. Because today one of the issues we feel is that the sector is managed by the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, and the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas is also the owner of the three publicly owned OMCs. I mean, they're the majority shareholder in the three publicly owned OMCs. So in a way, there's a little bit of a conflict of interest there. So we believe that having an independent regulator which can act as the adjudicating agent, and which can be the agent that is, let's say, setting up standards of performance requirements of OMCs and so on, will also go a long way to actually improve quality of service. And lastly, we think that OMCs themselves can provide better service to rural consumers, and the idea that we have there is in terms of actually MOPNG helping OMCs to better provide service to rural consumers, either by directly taking over rural consumers, rural distributorships, or by providing additional commissions to rural distributors and so on and so forth. So these are some ideas that we have, and maybe there are one or two more also listed out in our report, which has greater details. Thanks, Anne.
Yeah, thanks, Ashok. I think we have time for about 2 to 3 questions only more. So I will ask Naren the next question. Naren, do distributors use other approaches as well to redress some of the issues that they have? Are there cases before various courts and redressal agencies? And what have been the responses in such forums?
Yeah, thanks, Anne. This is an important question, and in fact, we have covered a bit of this in some of the footnotes of our report. So you can, whoever's asked this question can also look at some of these cases more. Few distributors have approached courts over sticky issues like viability of themselves if new distributors are appointed, and courts have, however, relied on the text of the agreement to often rule in the favor of OMCs, because as I mentioned, this agreement is after all a bipartite legal agreement. There have been many cases where it comes to compensation to consumers, and these cases have been taken up by the National Consumer Grievance Redressal Commission also. And there are few cases that exist where, in terms of talking about these accountability mechanisms themselves, there are cases where distributors have skipped the MDG appeal process and gone for arbitration. I don't remember the case, but it's mentioned in the report, and courts have honored that because MDG is a guideline and it cannot prevent arbitration under the Arbitration Act, and more so because it is also agreed upon in the agreement. So these are some of the case laws which are interesting. Per se, the Essential Commodities Act or the LPG order are not generally invoked against the distributors. They are, for some reason, reserved for the district administration to charge somebody who is acting as an intermediary and collecting all the cylinders from a village and then going to the distributor and bringing the refills. So now some of those cases are very interesting because there is a definitely, now linking back to the previous question, there is a quality of supply service issue there. Like the distributor is unable to provide LPG cylinders to the consumers, and the consumers themselves have found out a way to do it. And in those cases, we see that the OMC steps up and submits in the court saying that these people are authorized personals, please give them bail. So yeah, so quite a lot of interesting cases, and some of them are also ongoing. So I urge people to look at some of those. Thanks, Anne.
Yeah, thanks, Naren. Okay, Ashok, the next question is for you. What are some of the viable options to address the challenge of affordability for low-income LPG consumers to increase their usage and uptake of LPG? And this is for rural consumers as well as for PMUI beneficiaries. Ashok?
Yeah, thanks, Anne. This is, of course, the really burning question as to how does one address this. So I will begin by saying that in our opinion, there are three dimensions or three aspects to be addressed if one wants rural consumers or poor consumers to increase their consumption of LPG. The first, as has been asked, is the question of affordability, which is very important, the cost that people need to pay. The second is about quality of service, supply and service, which is what today's webinar and presentation was about. And the third is regarding behavior change, because there are also cultural and let's say issues related to food habits, issues related to cooking practices, issues related to patriarchy, various other behavioral, cultural, social issues which also need to be addressed. So there are three prongs that really need to be worked on if one wants to really enhance usage of LPG in rural households and poor households. But and today's webinar, as we said, focused on the QoSS part. I'll quickly share some of our thoughts on how we think affordability can be addressed. So there are two aspects there also. The first is, I think, as the question itself has talked about, there is a question of upfront cost. And Ujjwala has partially addressed that issue of upfront cost by providing a free connection to you. But the problem is that even within Ujjwala, the first cylinder that comes with you, the first cylinder filled with LPG that comes to you, though you don't pay anything upfront for it, the idea is that the cost for that will get recovered from you in installments. And until that cost is repaid, you don't get subsidized cylinders for your subsequent LPG purchases. We feel that this is actually a regressive step and defeats the purpose of enhancing LPG consumption. And one of our suggestions is that this the first cylinder also should be given free along with the Ujjwala connection that the consumer gets. And I'll share a link in the chat box to a paper that we have which discusses some of these ideas. In that we have calculated the numbers. I don't remember the exact number now, but I do remember that the cost of doing this is not prohibitive. When you're spending whatever 16,000 crores on Ujjwala, the additional cost of doing this is not something that really is very prohibitive, especially if you consider that this is likely to have a lot of health impacts and reduce a lot of health related costs and improve productivity and all those other good things that come with increased clean cooking fuel use. The second aspect, of course, is the running cost. Every cylinder that I buy, how much can I pay? So here there are again two aspects to it. One is that very often it is the issues of cash flow for rural people, rather the rural poor households, but cash flow is one of the major challenges, in addition to the fact that the amount itself is high. So here the idea that the ministry has been toying with and proposing is the question of a 5 kg cylinder, because then your cash flow issues get reduced, though the cost, overall cost, of course, doesn't change. So this is, we think, a good idea, but unfortunately, this is an idea that has not really taken off, and we are really not seeing sufficient use of this. The second aspect is, finally, there is really, we think that there's no real alternative except to look at subsidy. Currently, we feel that the LPG subsidy is being given to a very, very wide population. I don't remember the numbers again, but if I vaguely recollect, out of the 23 odd crore LPG connections that we have in the country, I think some 17 or 18 crore or probably even 20 crore households actually are availing subsidized connections. Honestly, we don't think that so many households need subsidized connections. What one can instead do is have a better targeting of subsidy. We have suggested some ideas in our paper to which I'll post the link, and instead provide greater subsidy than what is currently being provided. This is, of course, going against the recent announcement of MoPNG, but nonetheless, our suggestion is that the first, let's say, for first 3 or 4 years, once a consumer becomes an Ujjwala consumer, they need to be provided an even greater subsidy than what is provided to other subsidized consumers, so that usage of LPG becomes a normal part of your life, and then gradually perhaps this subsidy can be tapered off over time. So this is an idea that actually some states in India, interestingly enough, are trying. For example, Maharashtra, there is a scheme which is run by the Forest Department of Maharashtra and obviously their motivation is to prevent deforestation, which is a side effect of not using LPG. And the Forest Department of Maharashtra provides LPG consumers living in and around forest areas a greater subsidy over and above the MoPNG subsidy, so that their usage of LPG firewood reduces and usage of LPG increases. And this is the scheme that they provide to each household for, I think, 4 years or something like that. So similar ideas can actually be used to encourage usage of LPG. I'm sorry for that very long-winded answer, but I thought I'll just share all that. And I'm putting the link of our paper in the chat box. Sorry, and over to you, Anne.
Thanks, Ashok. I think you were very prepared for that question. I think we are out of time, but I'm going to take your leave and request for maybe one more question to be asked, the last question of this webinar, given the audience participation that we have right now. So the question, maybe Naren can take it. Given the increased push for privatization that is there, private participation in the supply chain for LPG would increase. And what are the sort of complications that you envisage given the current mechanisms with such a trend? That's the question.
Right. Thanks, Anne. Yeah, this is a very important question because the big word privatization. But one needs to understand that some parts of supply chain are already privatized. That is, there are some bottling plants which are coming up in the news that are going to be set up in PPP mode, and of course distributors, right? So Ujjwala was this big public scheme which was operationalized also by a lot of private players like the distributors. But the key question here is what would happen if private OMCs, that is either through privatization of existing PSUs or new private sector entrants, become major suppliers of LPG. And in the absence of an independent regulator or clear service and pricing obligations, and with weak competition, it is likely to make it difficult to hold them accountable. But one really needs to see how it evolves before being able to comment something with a lot more confidence. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Naren. Thanks, Ashok. That was a really good session. And we really hope you enjoyed this webinar. It has given us a lot of food for thought, and the Q&A session especially was a great learning experience for us. Just wanted to mention that the recording of the webinar, as well as the presentation itself, will be shared with all the registrations. So thank you for joining us, and have a nice evening. Thanks. Bye.